What secret are you bringing to the grave? Story 1. When my cousin died a few years ago, my family went over to his house to look around for a sense of closure. I ducked away for a bit and noticed his computer was still on. On his desktop was his adult video folder. I deleted it before my aunt and uncle ever saw it. Story 2. When we were kids, a female cousin and I played doctor around the age of 6 or 7, talked about it a few years ago around the age of 25, and became deeply intimate and have had really incredible lovemaking over the last few years. She recently got married and we have since ended our relationship. We are both normal, successful, contributing citizens. You'd never know. Hopefully no one finds out. But I do miss her and our level of intimacy. Story 3. That my dad paid my mom $1,500 for full custody of my youngest sibling. Not only would this be a massive blow to my sibling, but my dad remarried quite quickly and the new wife is the very definition of an evil stepmom. If my sibling knew that our mom gave her up for such a small sum of money and the trade-off was 5+ years of abuse, she would be destroyed. Story 4. So, my grandfather had a hand in making one of those World Series trophies back in the day. He never got any credit, but we do have photos and parts from his prototype. When I was a teen, I added what I knew to Wikipedia, since why not? Although I believe it's gone now, but funny story, I ended up being quoted in newspapers all over the world. Proceed to a few years later, I get a call from my mom who's almost in tears of joy. She found that wiki page and was freaking out. She was so happy he finally got credit. She ended up making really fancy shadow boxes of the wiki page printed out, copies of the photos, and other baseball stuff. She made one for each of her siblings. I've just had to go bite my tongue every time I go over there and see this thing hanging prominently in the living room. Story 5. Once when I was 13, I went a week and a half without pooping. I was on a camping trip and something must have happened with the drinking water or my digestion. I took laxatives, nothing worked. My stomach was killing me, but nothing would come out. And one evening after dinner, I felt it coming. I knew this was it. I bolted for the bathhouse, mentally preparing for the epic event. When I finally waddled in, the stalls were all occupied. At this point, I'm freaking out. I'm literally going to crap my pants and in the woods with no means of cleaning. I waddle to the private shower, attached to the bathrooms, and my desperate mind starts solving problems like I'm Bradley Cooper in Limitless. Initially, I think to just crap on the shower drain and waffle stomp it through, but I was not going to be that guy who ruined the nicest shower in the woods for everyone. Then, like a bolt of lightning, I knew what I had to do, so I pooped in the only piece of clothing I could spare, my sock. Obviously, my stomach was doing much better now, and I was hugely relieved. I brought the poop sock to the dumpster nearby, and one of my friends saw me on the way. Before I could dispose of the poop sock, he strikes up a conversation and starts asking questions about what I'm doing. Internally, I am panicking. The best excuse I could come up with was that I found a sock in the shower stuffed with mud, so I thought it best to throw it away. My friend affirms of how good a guy I am for doing that. I throw the poop sock into the dumpster and my problems are finally over. Mud in a sock is a ridiculous story, but there's absolutely no way he could have guessed that the real situation was much, much more bizarre. I've never told a soul about this until now, and I never will again. Story 6. When I was an awkward tween, my brothers and I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. We had been raised by my grandparents since we were little kids, and even after my dad remarried, he and my stepmom both worked graveyard shift, so we would spend the night at my grandparents' house while my parents were at work. One day, my grandmother informed me that it was my grandfather's birthday and suggested that I wish him a happy birthday. He was downstairs in the living room sitting on the sofa, and I went up to him and gave him a big hug around the neck and said, "Happy birthday, Grandpa." It was kind of difficult to hug a person sitting down, so I ended up kneeling on the sofa between his legs rather than trying to hug him from a standing position. He was quite happy and gave me a hug back. When I pulled back from the hug, he held me in his arms and gave me a big smile. And then he put his tongue in my mouth. Sometimes, when I was a little kid, we would kiss other family members on the mouth, but those were little pecks on the lip. I could tell immediately that this was different. His tongue was on my teeth. It lasted for only a moment, and I was grossed out and confused when I pulled away. At that moment, my grandmother walked into the living room. I turned my head to look at her. My hands were still on my grandpa's shoulders. She seemed really happy that I had wished my grandfather a happy birthday like a good little kid. I gave him a quick final hug and scrammed out of the room. For the rest of my tween and teen years, I was always careful not to be alone in the same room with my grandfather. He passed away during my 20s, a good decade ahead of his time due to lifestyle-induced health issues, and my family chose me to speak at his funeral. I had really complicated feelings about it because I did love him. My grandma and grandpa raised me, after all. Also, my grandfather was the rock of the family, and after he passed away, the three branches, my dad and our family plus his siblings and their family, gradually grew apart, and nothing was ever the same between us again. We don't even spend Christmas all together anymore. I've never told anyone in my family about it because I couldn't break my grandmother's heart. She survived her husband 10 years and still talks to and about him every day and visits his grave multiple times a week. So, thanks for listening to my story. Story 7. You know those stories about girls in the 70s who went to live with an aunt for a year during high school? I did that in 2008. I was a very naive teenager with irregular periods, and my friend thought it would be absolutely hilarious to buy those cheap pregnancy tests at Walmart and see what happened. We laughed the whole time until one of them was positive. We couldn't remember which was which, so we got 2 more, and turns out it was mine. That was when it dawned on me that I had done the deed. I didn't even know what it was at the time. I panicked and swore my friend to secrecy. I basically put it out of my mind until my clothes didn't fit me anymore. I was always really close with my older cousin, and we were talking on the phone one night when she asked how school was going, and I just dumped all of it on her. But she came up with the perfect plan. It was already April, and when I'd finally gotten the courage to go to Planned Parenthood, they told me I was due in August. So my cousin called my mom saying there was this amazing summer music program in her town that I just had to attend, and that I could stay with her the whole time. My mom thought it was great, and the day after school ended, I got on a plane to San Francisco. I stayed with my cousin. She went to all of my appointments with me, and she helped me find a social worker and eventually my daughter's parents. When I arrived back home before my junior year of high school started, my mom asked me how my summer was without really caring, and then remarked that I must have lost a few pounds. My cousin died in 2012 in a car accident, and no one else knew apart from that one friend, the doctors I saw in Oakland, and the people involved in the adoption. I get a photo and a letter about the child once a year, and I send money for her college and a card for her birthday every year. When she turns 16, her parents are allowed to give her the cards if she wants them, but they are not permitted to pass any contact information along. I have no interest in meeting her or getting to know her personally. I know she's safe and comfortable, and that's all I want. I will die before I tell anyone about her, and if my friend were to spill the beans, I would deny it. Story 8. My dad cheated on my mom and invited the person over when I was 9. She was a severely overweight woman, and my dad is also quite overweight. My parents were fighting but trying to work things out. They slept in separate rooms at this point. Earlier that day, I had jumped onto his bed and broke the board supporting it on the bed frame. I wasn't allowed to do this and always got in trouble for this reason. My mom smelled the fact that my dad had company because she smoked in my house. She asked if I jumped on the bed. I said no, I feared I'd get in trouble. I was surprised there was no follow-up trying to prove my guilt. Years later, I remember why she asked and realized my lie basically incriminated my dad. Story 9. I attempted to off my mother. She was abusive, verbally but also physically. She'd hit you in the places no one would see or rip clumps out of my hair when Dad was on the road for work. She probably has a personality disorder. She got in my face one night when I was coming home from my second job and I had it. My mom went through whole periods where she wouldn't work, but I was working myself to death every summer, working 50 plus hours a week to pay family bills in my parents' names and also get my younger sister to all of her activities. I had it. I tried to put my mom's head through a wall. She started screaming, "Oh, help, help," and I told her she could dish it out. She should also be able to take it, shoved her on the ground and kicked her repeatedly in the abdomen and thigh while still trying to put her head through the wall with one hand. I really messed her up, and it felt so good to do so. She's destroyed so many people's lives, and she never faces any consequences for it. No one in our family ever helped me or called the police when she would abuse me. The only one who ever helped was the dog. If the dog was awake when my mom tried to start something, she'd get between us, growl at my mom until she backed down. I had always shown restraint and never hit her until this night. But my dad did call the cops on me when I crossed that line. The cops get there, split us up to interview. I explained my side and then just blurted out, "Where were you a-holes when I was 8 and she was doing that to me?" The cop was taken aback. I think he could tell I was being honest, and it was a culmination of years of pain. He goes and talks to his partner. I think this isn't an assault. I think it's a mental illness thing. Then they basically intimidated my mom and dad into agreeing with them. They wouldn't let it go until they agreed it was a medical issue, not a criminal one. So they called an ambulance, and I went to the hospital as part of a diversion program. Basically, they sent me to detox for 3 days, and I emerged with no record, no charges, no nothing, except for a script for Prozac and a recommendation for therapy. Trying to off my mom probably saved my life, honestly, because I got myself some tools from a therapist, but I'm not stupid enough to want people to know. Who would date me? Would I ever get promoted at work? Anyway, be kind. You never know what someone's been through, and you never know what people are capable of when pushed far enough. Story 10. I sharted on a New Year's bus a few years ago. I thought it was just a fart, but it was a small shotgun blast of fluid. I stayed calm and threw my undies away at the next bar. Luckily, there was little to no crap on the inside of my jeans, and I was able to continue the night with no one aware of my poop crime. Story 11. There's something I should have told my best friend, but I don't have the heart to tell him this. An hour before his girlfriend died in a car accident, I saw her at my job, making out with the captain of the track team, his cousin. It's been 8 years, but I can't do that to him. He was going to propose to her that day. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you guys want to see more, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, and check out some more videos in the description below.